Hey, how you doing? This is Chris Franklin with the Endocrine Minute. Today I'm going to be talking about pregnenolone. That's right, Big Poppa pregnenolone. When the hormones who's your daddy, pregnenolone picks up the phone. That's right, when you're talking about the granddaddy of every steroid in your body, we're talking about when testosterone says, who my daddy? Pregnenolone is his daddy. Because every hormone, if you think about it, if there was a pyramid, an Egyptian pyramid of hormones or a pyramid of hormones, then pregnenolone would sit atop that pyramid. It is literally the first hormone. Now, where do all the hormones come from? They are derived, the steroids are derived from cholesterol. That's right, if you look at the structure of cholesterol, it is very similar to pregnenolone. The one distinctive difference you can note with it is there is a long fatty acid side chain that hangs off of the 5-membered carbon on the top of the ring. What happens if you notice there's a tertiary carbon at the alpha position, it is first hydroxylated and then oxidized into a ketone is what you see in pregnenolone. And from that one molecule, that pregnenolone, every other hormone in your body, every other steroid hormone can be made in your body. It doesn't matter if it's cortisol, aldosterone, testosterone, estradiol, DHT, DHEA, you name it, it came from the same place. So then the first question is, what does it do? Besides being the precursor to every hormone, it has a very amazing effect on the brain. Pregnenolone can cross the blood-brain barrier where it can be converted into a neurosteroid called allopregaine. Allopregaine has the ability to bind to the GABA receptor allosterically and calm the brain. That's right, pregnenolone can actually produce a calming effect on the brain because the body's actually having a conversion to allopregaine and actually becomes a neurosteroid that reduces inflammation in the brain and calms it down. Number 2 is pregnenolone has been shown in clinical studies to improve how the perception of pain is monitored. Imagine if you were in chronic pain, your hormones would first go very high, and then as they're depleted, the body's perception of pain would change. Higher doses of pregnenolone to be able to backfeed the adrenal fatigue that would be occurring during some type of chronic pain would allow your body to produce the hormones necessary and change the perception of the pain. It won't fix the injury, but it'll fix how you perceive the injury and help you to modulate pain. So the question is, how do you get that measured? What's an optimal level? Good question. We find that as people age, pregnenolone tends to decline with age. It doesn't get better like wine, not this time. So pregnenolone, as it's depleted, the other population, and going back to how do you measure it, there's only 3 labs in the United States that actually have the technological equipment to measure pregnenolone, and that would have been LabCorp, Quest, and Clinicore. Fortunately, with Clinicore, we have now stockpiled over 100,000 endocrinomic profiles where we have worked with patients and actually quantitated all of their hormones simultaneously to be able to get, if you will, an endocrinomic footprint of their steroid hormone pathways. And having that type of statistical data has allowed us to see very unique pieces or anomalies, if you will, within the patterns that give us idea of what's kind of going on in the body. One of the places we find is that patients that are receiving hormone replacement therapy are often have very low pregnenolone levels. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it because you're receiving an exogenous steroid, let's say a testosterone or an estradiol or a progesterone. And as you're receiving those, the body recognizes that there's an excess in one direction, so it begins to downregulate the production in hormones in other. Pregnenolone being a spot, as well as DHEA for sex steroids. Same thing would happen if someone were to take prednisone. It will deplete their cortisol, but their body will eventually kick back in as it comes back. So those would be optional areas that need to be measured. Next is when you look at what is its role. Like if I were to supplement with pregnenolone, what could I expect? If you were to supplement with it, what you'd find is on a longevity approach, using 100 milligrams in the morning and 100 milligrams in the evening is just enough to bring you into optimal levels. Typically like to see them around 150 to 200 nanograms per deciliter or per milliliter is an optimal range. Most people were going to be probably less than 50. So that's what we've seen clinically. Overall, if someone's supplemented with it, we'll see 200, 300 nanograms per mil. So it's a fairly easy place to see. The question then becomes, again, about the dosing. So longevity, 100 milligrams morning and evening. People that are dealing with chronic pain, when I went through both my shoulder surgeries, one of the pieces that I found that really helped my perception of the pain and deal with the stress on my body was I used 200 milligrams of pregnenolone 3 times a day. That kept my levels adequate, kept the corticosteroids in balance, kept my body from backfeeding because I'm also on HRT. That allowed me to mitigate through both rotator cuff surgeries and help me to deal with the pain and during recovery. One of the other unique pieces they found is recovering from cannabis intoxication. Let's say you got too high last night. 500 milligrams of pregnenolone in the morning will ameliorate a lot of the cannabis hangover or the lingering effects of cannabis on the brain so that you can remain focused. Can't advocate for using that to sober you up. However, I can admit there's at least 2 peer-reviewed publications that show that 500 milligrams of pregnenolone will ameliorate any of the cannabis hangover. That also means that if you get too high, you could take pregnenolone to come down. It could mean that if you took pregnenolone, you may not get as high. And that has to do a lot of the allopregaine and the calming effects that it has on the brain. So, who needs to get their pregnenolone measured? If you're on HRT, it would do you well to add pregnenolone to your profile to be able to see that number and see how it's moved, see whether you need to supplement. Because one of the things that have been found with many people that get on HRT, you originally bring, let's say, a testosterone up to its optimal state. Man, you feel amazing. And then after about a month, while you still feel better than you did before being on it, you don't feel quite as good. Some of that is the downregulation of pregnenolone and DHEA. So by supplementing those into your pathway and allowing your body to have those other steroids that also serve other purposes beyond just being intermediate between 2 points, will actually improve the overall outcomes with HRT, or I would say the quality of life a patient would receive on it. You can go over to our Core Health website. We've got those available if you're interested in any of the hormones. The next one is part of your wellness. Where's your numbers at? If you think about it, the human body doesn't come with a check engine light. You don't look in the mirror in the morning and you have a check engine light on your forehead telling you that you got something wrong with you. Most of ours perception is how we feel, whether it's, does something hurt? Does it ache? Am I anxious? Am I tired? Your body doesn't have a check engine light. So in your wellness profile, when they're running your CBC, CMP, have them check pregnenolone just to check where your levels are. That way it gives you an idea of not am I sick or diseased, but can I improve the quality of life from where I'm at? And what we're talking about is leveling up our health, leveling up our ability to do more, feel younger, feel stronger, greater vitality. And that's the goal, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So again, that's what you're going to want to look at for pregnenolone. You want to be able to get it measured. It's going to have to be measured on mass spec because there is no other way to measure it. If you're on HRT, there's a very good chance your levels are low and probably need to be supplemented with it. If you're having trouble focus because you got too high last night, a little pregnenolone goes a long way and will help the day, keep the day at bay. So This is Chris Franklin with an Endocrine Minute. And now you know about Big Poppa Pregenolone.